In a different matter, Labour Union Cosatu has condemned what it describes as the appalling neglect and abuse of post office workers. Employees of the struggling SOE are expected to accept a 40% pay cut, while some 6,000 others will lose their jobs entirely. Now, it all comes as the post office is undergoing business rescue as it grapples to sustain itself. Joining us is Matthew Parks, Cosatu parliamentary coordinator. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. Thousands of jobs are at stake and, of course, workers are on edge. What's your take?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us. Look, it really is appalling. It's unacceptable. We, seek to be a caring society. Government seeks to take care of the struggling, the most disadvantaged. But the conduct of the leadership, the management of the post office and even the department is shocking. We've seen for many times over the past few years postal workers not receiving their salaries on time, at times for months at a go. We've seen cases of serious fraud taking place where management deducts the third-party contributions from the post office workers, like the medical aid, pension funds, etc., and doesn't hand them over to those third parties. And this caused those policies to lapse. Now, many workers have simply chosen to resign, to go and look for other work, better opportunities, which will treat them with the respect they deserve. Post office is now embarking upon a plan to retrench about 6,000 out of the remaining 14,000 staff. So really shrinking into an absolute skeleton core. They've been closing hundreds of branches across the country. In many instances, the branches have been closed by the landlords because the post office hasn't been paying the rent due to those, whether it's a shopping center or whomever owns the premises. And, so part of the business rescue plan of the post office is to constantly shrink. The footprint, the capacity of the post office is going to get to a point where they have nothing left. Because not only do you shrink, but you lose the customer base. If you close a branch, in a rural town in Limpopo or the Eastern Cape, you move to another town, you simply lose that customer base. Those customers are forced to look elsewhere for those services. But also it has a huge impact upon the communities they serve, which are largely disadvantaged communities and townships and rural areas especially, who depend upon accessing the post office to get to their social grants, to access other services the post office offers. And we're not sure, not only are we really causing havoc to these workers' lives and their families' lives and the customers' lives, but what will be left of the post office is we're going to get to a situation where there's nothing left that can be revived. I think for us it's really quite shocking. The governor just sitting with his hands folded is not doing much to assist them. And the post office manager doesn't seem to have a plan besides just cutting with a machete every single time.
And as you say that, we know that the SA Post Office has been operating at a loss since 2013. And of course, what we're seeing is a situation which is getting worse. What plans or perhaps what proposal would you put in place as thousands of employees stand a chance of losing their jobs? What would you say are some of the biggest loopholes and perhaps how it can be fixed, if it can be fixed?
Yeah. Look, it can be fixed. Any business vehicle can be fixed, but it needs to be fundamentally repositioned. The fact is that, people like you and I, we no longer post letters to communicate to relatives. We rather just send a WhatsApp or an email. So that's what really hit post office hard, that people have moved to electronic communications. But yet there is still a significant appetite for courier services. We can see, the private courier sector companies are thriving. They're making a huge killing. If you look recently since the pandemic, many of the retailers have moved to e-delivery services. So, for example, a shopping center, a Woolworths, a Pick n Pay, whomever, without advertising companies, will allow you to order your groceries online, and they'll send a guy on a little motorcycle to your house to deliver it, etc. Fast food companies also too frequently deliver things. So there are many kind of new business opportunities for the post office to enter. There is two legislative amendments which have been, one is a Parliament and one is, if the President signed it, which seek to reposition the post office. So the post office amendment bill, which is currently before the National Council of Provinces, it mandates the post office now to enter the courier space, to also become a one-stop shop for government services. The people who want to apply, say, for example, social grants or NSFAS or UIF or compensation injury or IDs, etc. But that in future could be an option for government departments to look at to say, well, post office has got a bigger footprint. They have a footprint in deep rural areas, etc. Let it be a one-stop shop, like the song said it used to be for government, where people could access the government services there. That could give it a huge, longer, term footprint. So similar to what Home Affairs is seeking to do with the banks, where they allow customers to apply at certain bank branches for ID or passport applications, etc. That could be a critical thing. Of course, the post office can also be linked to the Department of Small Business Development, to the CETAs, to some of the funding agencies which give support to SMEs to apply to. That can also be a useful thing. And of course, entering the courier service businesses. So the president, and of course, the other part linked to it is about the Post Bank. So the Post Bank Amendment Act has been signed by the president, needs to come into effect. But basically, legally separates the Post Bank from the Post Office, which is fine. But we need to give the support for the Post Bank to take off on its own, using the Post Office premises and attracting its clients. Post Bank has got a really significant customer base, but it does need to be given support to become fully fledged and operational, such that so the law was amended. But we also think that the government too, whether it's national departments or provincial or local government or SOEs or entities, they should be seeking to use the Post Bank as their bank of choice as opposed to going to a private bank, because that's going to inject the necessary liquidity to the Post Bank to enable it to become a really competitive, viable bank to play a role in the economy. So if you can do that, then yes, the Post Office, the Post Bank have a fighting chance. Doesn't mean they must be mismanaged or be allowed to operate at a loss, so they must compete on their own feet. But let's give them that fighting chance and that support, and let's bring a bit of injection of competition into the courier services, into the banking service, etc. Then it can be a useful thing, and it can be done. Many other countries have had success in transitioning. But I think the main thing right now is that if you continue the current business model of relying upon people posting letters to relatives in rural areas, that model is not sustainable and is changed fundamentally.
In the meantime, what we do know is that a 40% pay cut is what is being proposed here, with over, the statement says, about 14,000 hard-working post office employees who stand a chance of losing their jobs. How are they approaching this? I mean, you made mention a little earlier on about how others are looking for other means of employment, but a 40% pay cut, how is that being received?
It's devastating news. I think this is why so many workers have resigned from the post office over the past couple of years, in addition to not being paid and in addition to the third-party contributions not being paid. It's a devastating news. No worker can afford that. And post workers are not paid a large salary. In this economic times, we've had significant cost of living rise increases, electricity and fuel and so forth. It's absolutely devastating. It just simply can't afford it. And, in South Africa, each worker supports on average about 6 or 7 relatives who don't have work, whether it's grandparents or children, siblings, etc., or spouses and so forth. So it really it's just an unbelievable blow. And of course, you're kind of putting a bit of a gun to the workers' heads by saying, well, at the same time, we're going to retrench about 6,000 out of your 14,000 colleagues. That really is a psychologically traumatizing blow. The matter is now before the CCMA. The post office was going to go to the CCMA, rather. The post office has already declared its intention through Section 189 of the Labour Relations Act to embark upon this process. The unions led by Cosatu's affiliate, Communication Workers Union, is actively engaging in opposing the matter, but they feel that, and we agree that the management has not engaged in good faith, has not looked at alternatives, has simply just decided this is what they're going to do at all costs. And this was first indicated in the previous budget speech by the Minister of Finance a year ago, that the intention was to retrench 6,000 staff. And we're quite alarmed that government has known about this plan and has quietly, tacitly endorsed it, has not looked at alternatives. And we're not saying that we should not do anything, but there must be alternatives that should be found. And we think that there could be alternatives that could be found.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Matthew Parks, Cosatu's parliamentary coordinator, they're reacting to the news that the post office workers, 6,000 up to 14,000 post office employees stand in line to lose their jobs or also be forced to take a 40% salary cut.